Hi guys. So, had someone message me the other day and they were asking about specific exercises I would recommend for grapplers. So, I'm going to go through a bit of video, show you some exercises and why I would prioritize those exercises. So, first and foremost, there's a lot of exercises that are going to have carryover to grappling, and increasing your strength in general is going to improve your grappling because, as much as people don't like to admit it, strength is important in grappling. The way I say it is that strength is a technique amplifier. If you have strength and you apply it to good technique, it's going to make that technique more effective. If you have shitty technique and you apply strength, then it's like trying to cut down a tree with a blunt side of an axe. Truth is, you've got to have the technique first, but applying a good focused amount of strength to that technique is going to help. So, what are the demands of grappling? So a lot of people, when it comes to improving their grappling, they'll take a very general athletic approach to it. So they'll be looking at a lot of explosive movements starting from the feet. And there is use for those exercises, 100%. But when it's specifically submission grappling only, their benefit is overstated, in my opinion. Here's why I think that. Multi-directional agility, for example, isn't in demand in grappling. Even at the start of the match, you're on your feet, the general movement is going to be forward towards your opponent. It's very rare that you move in an agile way, laterally, for one. Look at a grappling match, when's the last time you've seen someone hopping from one foot to the other, side to side? The demand for it in grappling isn't great. So investing time into that amount of training, while it will improve your general athletic ability, doesn't really have much of a carryover into grappling. The ability to drive forward is very important. Very similar to, say, your rugby tackles and things like that. The ability to generate force and shoot forward powerfully and dump someone on the ground is a very, very useful skill. But even that is somewhat over-focused on when it comes to training, in my opinion. And the reason why, because you get some guard-pulling scumbag who just grabs you and sits on their ass, and then all of the work you've done from your feet is out the window because you're now on your knees and you can't access that explosive power. You know, you don't shoot a double from your knees. You don't hop around from foot to foot from your knees. All of that general agility is gone. And now you're in a very grindy situation on the ground where you're trying to pass someone's guard. So you can literally focus all of your training into your box jumps and your lateral hops and all of that. And as soon as someone grabs hold of your sleeves and sits down on their butt, boom, that training and all the useful carryover it's got is gone because you're on your knees and you can't use it. So what is useful in grappling? Well, grappling is a very pull-dominated sport. The majority of the actions when it comes to attacking are to do with pulling, twisting. It's much more pull-dominated than push-dominated, though there are pushing exercises in there that we're going to have a look at. Pull does tend to dominate the grappling space, so we're going to look at some pulling exercises that will help, and a lot of isometric contractions when it comes to chokes, for example. There's very little movement in the joint when you're applying a choke to someone, but there's a lot of contraction, a lot of force. Your muscles have got to be able to contract very strongly for a long duration of time, depending on how durable the person is that you're trying to strangle. So isometric holds and pulls are two of the things that we're going to focus on because, in my opinion, they have some of the biggest carryover when it comes to grappling. There are things like your deadlifts and your bench press that are going to have uses when it comes to grappling, but I'm going to look at some more specific exercises that have a bit more of a carryover for you. So why have I chosen the gorilla row? When you go into that hip hinge, you're basically replicating the ability to stand up inside someone's guard. It's a very common position because if I stood up straight from here, I would be able to be knocked backwards. So it's quite a common position you would see. Why am I putting the row in there? The row is going to help me with the ability to pull my partner off the ground. It's a very useful tool to have. Why have I put an isometric contraction in there? So you notice I'm holding for 2 seconds at the top, purely because when it comes to grappling, my muscles need the ability to do that, especially when it comes to choking and things like that. So the setup for the row, kettlebells in between your feet. You want to make sure that when you hinge your hips, that you get a nice straight, strong back. Purely from a grappling standpoint, you want to make sure that your head is not out of line with your back, because if it is, it compromises the integrity of the spine and gives you the ability to be knocked over or folded. Okay, next up we have the kettlebell swing. So I know I said explosive exercise is not necessarily to be prioritized when it comes to grappling training. The kettlebell swing is an exception that I'd like to put in there. The reason is because of the work it does on your posterior chain. So you're talking about hamstring and glute contraction, and the hamstrings have a huge carryover when it comes to controlling someone, say, from their back. If you're on someone's back, your hamstrings, what they're going to be doing? They're going to be contracting to hold the person there. Now, you could argue that you could do a more specific exercise like a Nordic hamstring curl, for example. But the reason I chose the kettlebell swing was because of the explosive aspect, the extension of the hip and knees that you get when it comes to doing the actual swing has a carryover when it comes to picking people up and dumping them. So that's why it won out for me over the hamstring curl. Okay, third and final exercise is the Turkish Get Up. So why the Turkish Get Up? Well, outside of it being a fantastic exercise in general for the demands it puts on the stability of your shoulder joint, some lower body strength in order to lift your hips in order to get up, your core to not fall over. The fact of the matter is, it's probably one of the exercises that has the most carryover, and I mean direct carryover into grappling. If you don't believe me, just go to YouTube, search Bernardo Faria's Turkish Get Up sweep. It is literally a reversal that he's worked out from the bottom to turn someone over. And it is literally a Turkish Get Up. So what we're looking at when it comes to the Turkish Get Up. Firstly, you have to forgive my form here because I haven't done a Turkish Get Up since November when I hurt my shoulder, and like a true meathead, I've just picked up the same kettlebell I always use, which is pretty heavy. So first thing you've got at the bottom there is a floor press, assisted in this case because the weight is heavy. That's useful when it comes to grappling, because if you've ever been in side control, been bench pressed off someone, there's a carryover. From here, you're going to get into a lunge position and step up onto your feet. Obviously doing all of that without letting the kettlebell fall down and land on your head. So there's my exercises, the 3 exercises I'd recommend. By all means, that is not an exhaustive list. I'll put a more exhaustive list at the end of this video for you. Those are just 3 exercises that I feel have a very core position when it comes to a grappling strength-based program.